Have you ever noticed that many people make money, but remain poor? And no, this has nothing to do with a low salary, an economic crisis, or lack of opportunity. The truth is far more uncomfortable. Two people can earn the same amount, use the same credit card, desire the same luxury cars, and still end up in completely opposite places. One builds wealth, the other lives in debt, and almost no one likes to admit why. Maybe you believe the problem is a lack of money, but what if money was never the problem? What if the brutal difference between those who prosper and those who stay stuck lies in how they think, decide, and act every single day? While some use an iPhone to feel like winners, others use that same money to build freedom. It sounds contradictory, but that's exactly where the game changes. In this video, you'll realize that wealth doesn't start in a bank account. It starts in the mind. You'll understand why intelligent people stay trapped in debt, why consumption brings relief but steals your future, and why true entrepreneurs think differently when no one is watching. There's no empty motivation here, only a confrontation with the patterns that shape destinies. And before we continue, comment below. Do you think people's real problem is lack of money or lack of mindset? Leave a like if this already makes sense to you, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications because what comes next may change how you see money, wealth, and your own decisions. You probably grew up hearing that most people's problem is lack of money, but that's only half the truth, and a dangerous one. Before wealth exists, before the first dollar ever hits your account, there is already a way of thinking operating silently. Two people can earn the same salary and live completely different lives. One builds, the other sinks into debt. The difference isn't how much comes in, but what you mentally do with it. Notice how money often becomes permission to consume. When there's a little left over, the impulse appears. Upgrade your phone, finance an iPhone, relieve the feeling of being behind. The credit card becomes an emotional anesthetic. It works for a while, but later it charges interest, anxiety, and pressure. Without realizing it, you start living in constant damage control. Those who build wealth think before reacting. They don't seek immediate relief, they seek direction. Most financial decisions aren't born from logic, they're born from emotion. You buy to feel something: belonging, victory, compensation. Luxury cars become symbols of status, not strategy. The poor mindset wants to prove something to others. The rich mindset wants freedom. That difference changes everything, because it defines how you use money when no one is watching. There's also the trap of blind effort. Working harder sounds noble, almost automatic, but effort without strategy only accelerates exhaustion. A limited mindset believes more hours solve everything. A wealth mindset understands that thinking better is more valuable than doing more. The entrepreneur doesn't run all day. He chooses where to place his energy, and that daily choice shapes the future. Pay attention to your internal questions. They reveal your pattern. Do you think, how do I pay this now? Or, does this move me closer to or further from wealth? Those who live in the short term collect bills. Those who think long term build assets. One reacts to life, the other designs it. And the most interesting part? It all begins with a silent question, asked dozens of times a day. Here's the most uncomfortable part. It's not lack of access or intelligence. It's repeated mental patterns. Change how you think, and you change how you decide. Change decisions, and results change. Sustain that long enough, and something deeper comes into play. The identity that controls everything without you even noticing. You may believe you want more money, but the truth is, no one sustains a level of wealth higher than what their identity allows. Before the bank account changes, you must change. If internally you still see yourself as someone in debt, any increase in income will be temporary. Money comes in, but it finds a mind unprepared to hold it. And the brain, loyal to what it believes, finds a way to return everything to the starting point. Notice the difference between trying to make money and becoming someone valuable. A limited mindset asks, how much can I earn? A wealth mindset asks, who do I need to become? An entrepreneur adjusts posture before salary. He behaves like someone who solves problems before being paid. Growth doesn't come from permission, it comes from responsibility. This identity shift happens quietly, away from the spotlight. You've probably seen someone increase their income and still remain in debt. Income rises, consumption rises with it. Bigger installments, more credit card use, more pressure. A new iPhone feels like a win, but becomes an anchor. That happens because identity didn't change. First you change internally, then wealth finds room to stay. Otherwise, it slips through your fingers. Your habits reveal exactly who you believe you are. Those who see themselves as victims consume more than they create. Builders invest even when afraid. Reading, learning, failing, and adjusting become routine. There's no glamour, only consistency. Entrepreneurs understand that every small daily action reinforces the identity being built, even when no one applauds. The most uncomfortable truth is this: opportunities don't transform people, they reveal them. When more money arrives without internal change, decisions worsen, spending increases, debt grows, anxiety rises. Those who change identity act with criteria, even when earning less at first. They learn to say no to immediate pleasure, and that changes the game. Breaking away from your old identity hurts because it means abandoning inherited beliefs and family habits. But that rupture is exactly where the breakthrough begins. When you question who you believe you are, deep beliefs about money and wealth surface, and those invisible beliefs are often what keep people trapped without realizing it. You weren't born afraid of money, you learned it. Loose phrases, bad experiences, and close examples shaped your relationship with wealth without you noticing. Over time, money started to feel difficult, unfair, or even wrong. When that happens, your mind creates silent resistance. You say you want to prosper but act to avoid it. That internal conflict blocks real progress. You may have heard things like, money changes people, or rich people only think about themselves. These beliefs seem harmless but sabotage daily decisions. When money is seen as negative, it's unconsciously avoided. You may try to build a business, but feel guilty about profiting. You charge less than you're worth, avoid growth, run from expansion. Your brain is simply being loyal to what it believes is true. Another powerful trap is the belief in luck. When you look at luxury cars and think they came from chance, something dangerous happens. You remove responsibility from your hands. If it was luck, you had no control. That protects the ego, but kills progress. A wealth mindset understands nothing, there was random. It was repeated decisions over time. Beliefs act as mental filters. Two people receive the same financial information. One ignores it, the other applies it. It's not intelligence, it's programming. If you believe money only comes with extreme suffering, you reject strategy. If you think debt is normal, you use credit cards without criteria. Your bank statement becomes a perfect reflection of what you believe. Changing beliefs isn't about repeating positive phrases in the mirror. It's about observing your daily reactions. Why do you buy? Why do you delay investing? Why are you afraid to learn something new? Questioning these impulses is the first step. Conscious entrepreneurs don't accept the mind's first answer. They investigate, adjust, and move forward. When these beliefs begin to fall, something interesting happens. Your decisions change without forced effort. You start acting differently on autopilot. And that's where the contrast between rich and poor mindsets shows up, in small, everyday choices made almost unconsciously. You decide your future in seemingly trivial moments, not in big turning points, but in small, repeated choices. A limited mindset buys relief. After a hard day, the reward comes through consumption. An impulse order, a new credit card installment, something to forget the pressure. Relief is immediate, but the bill comes later. Pain is only postponed. This creates a silent cycle. You trade vision for distraction. Short-term rules, long-term disappears. Meanwhile, debt grows quietly. The indebted person doesn't realize they're financing the present with the future. Each choice seems small, but together they define destiny. A poor mindset seeks comfort now and pushes consequences forward. A wealth mindset decides differently. It invests, not just money, but time and energy. Instead of consuming to feel better, you build to become better. You learn new skills, study entrepreneurship, observe how other entrepreneurs solve problems. There's conscious sacrifice with purpose. Discomfort stops being an enemy and becomes a tool. When you start investing, the world changes color. Money stops being the goal and becomes a tool. Every dollar gets a function. You ask whether a choice builds freedom or dependence. Luxury cars stop being obsession and become consequence. Supercars don't symbolize status. They symbolize well-executed processes over time. No one sees this phase. No one applauds when you say no to emotional spending. There's no glamour in studying while others distract themselves. But this is exactly where the brutal difference is built. While many appear to move forward, you're structuring. While many celebrate, you prepare the next step. Over time, these decisions create a powerful compounding effect. The future begins to respond differently. But there's one detail few mention. Most people wait to feel motivated before acting. Those who build wealth move for something far stronger than motivation. You can wait for motivation, but it almost never arrives when you need it. A limited mindset lives in eternal waiting. When there's time, when income increases, when things improve. Life doesn't pause. While you wait to feel ready, debts grow and opportunities pass. A poor mindset acts when it feels like it. A wealth mindset acts because it understands urgency. Nothing changes without real emotional pain. As long as you're comfortable, even dissatisfied, you won't move. The brain prefers the familiar, even when it hurts. That's why people stay in debt for years. The pain of change feels bigger than the pain of staying the same, until staying hurts more. That's when the shift begins. True ambition isn't pretty or motivational. It's uncomfortable, disruptive, sleepless. You start looking at your routine and sensing something is wrong. It's not envy of luxury cars. It's awareness of wasted potential. A rich mindset doesn't romanticize this discomfort. It uses it as fuel, turning frustration into direction. While some wait for inspiration, you act with discipline. Tired, insecure. Entrepreneurs understand clarity comes after action, not before. Every step reduces fear and increases control. Internal urgency starts driving decisions instead of daily mood. That's a silent divider between growth and stagnation. Emotion stops being an enemy and becomes an ally. You learn to feel fear and move forward anyway. You learn to say no to distractions, even when the credit card is right there tempting. You trade immediate pleasure for conscious construction. It's not comfortable, but it's powerful. It reshapes your relationship with money and wealth. Act like this long enough and something interesting happens. Money starts responding differently, not because you chase it, but because you solve real problems. And that reveals a simple truth most ignore. Money doesn't create who you are. It only shows it. You must understand something most people resist at first. Money doesn't create character, intelligence, or mindset. It only reveals what was already there. If you were impulsive before, more money makes you more impulsive. If you were disorganized, chaos increases. That's why so many earn more and stay in debt. Money was never the issue, internal preparation was. When you think differently long enough, decisions change automatically. You spend less energy on things that build nothing. Credit cards stop being temptation and become neutral tools. Focus shifts from appearance to structure. This silent adjustment separates real growth from temporary gains. Money naturally flows to those who solve problems. The bigger the problem you solve, the greater the reward tends to be. Entrepreneurs learn this early. They don't ask only, how do I make money? But what real problem can I solve? Wealth stops being a goal and becomes a consequence. Not magic, logic applied consistently. Notice how people who build wealth talk less about consumption and more about processes. Luxury cars appear at the end of the story, not the beginning. They symbolize efficiency, not validation. Reverse that order and you pay the price. Image first, foundation later. Without foundation, any wind knocks you down. Time also matters. Results don't show up overnight, but they're inevitable when mental patterns are maintained. Think better, decide better, act better, repeat. Most people quit before reaching this point, not because it doesn't work, but because it demands patience and aligned identity. When you understand money only reveals, the question changes again. It's no longer about earning faster. It's about becoming someone capable of sustaining what comes. And when that awareness settles in, one final choice appears, the one that separates those who stay the same from those who change everything. At some point, you realize repeating the same questions won't bring new answers. How do I make money? Sounds logical, but is shallow. The question that changes everything is deeper. How do you think under pressure? How do you decide when no one is watching? How do you act when the easy path appears? These answers define far more than any starting income. While many chase ready-made formulas, you start looking inward. You observe patterns, automatic reactions, impulses. You see that most of your financial decisions weren't strategic, they were emotional. Debt didn't appear overnight, it was repeated choices. Wealth works the same way, conscious repetition of better decisions. Victimhood loses strength here. Blaming the system, salary, government, or lack of opportunity no longer makes sense. You realize responsibility isn't blame, it's freedom. That's when the entrepreneur is born, not by having all answers, but by stopping avoidance of the right questions. You begin to see money as a thermometer. It measures clarity, preparation, and consistency, not human value, character, or happiness. It measures how much value you generate in the real world. Once this view settles in, the game changes. Wealth stops being taboo and becomes a logical consequence of good choices. Many step back here. This level of responsibility is scary. You can't outsource results anymore. Every expense, investment, and credit card use carries weight. But with that weight comes something rare: control. And control brings calm, not anxiety. When you understand this, something quiet happens. Comparison fades. Luxury cars lose obsession. Supercars lose fantasy. Everything becomes process-driven. And this is where the conversation gets even more interesting, because now it makes sense to provoke the uncomfortable question that opens the video and hooks the viewer from the first second. Now, the question isn't whether this makes sense. The question is, what will you do with this understanding? Knowledge that doesn't turn into decisions becomes weight. You now see money isn't the starting point, it's the reflection. Wealth isn't born from consumption, but construction. And using credit cards to soothe emotions only keeps you stuck year after year. So ask yourself honestly, which decisions are you repeating that keep you in debt? Where are you choosing comfort over growth? What are you buying to feel something you could be building to become someone else? These answers hurt, but they're exactly what sets you free. Real change begins when you decide to act differently, even without motivation. When you choose learning over distraction, investing over impressing, building over consuming. It's not about never enjoying life. It's about stopping the trade of your future for immediate relief. That's how entrepreneurs think. That's how wealth starts forming. Now I want to hear from you. What was the biggest shift in perspective from this video? Comment below with the insight that challenged you most. It helps the algorithm, but more importantly, it helps you make a public commitment to change. If this content made sense, subscribe, turn on notifications, and keep following. Here you won't find empty shortcuts, only clarity, strategy, and mindset to move forward. The decision is already in your hands. The question is, will you act or just watch another video?